So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is part 2 of the Johanna Basford's Magical Jungle. And I haven't been colouring in this little book for a while, so I thought I'd go back to it. And I thought the pencils, the pastel pencils from Derwent, I thought the vibrant colours would lend themselves to some really nice, pretty colours. So I'm just using a couple of blending, mine are actually called colour shapers, and I can't remember where I got them from, but I found a little tiny one as well now. So I've got a little DD one to get into corners, and then I've got my favourite one that I use all the time. And if it's too tiny, I'll just blend it and make it into fix it with a little brush straight away and not bother even blending it. Just blend it with a brush. Sometimes small spaces are easier to do that way. But the bigger spaces I do like to blend, so I'm blending 3 or 4 different colours in this, so these colours are all made up. I quite like that idea, to do that in this particular book. So I like the idea that I work in different books in different ways, even though I'm using the same pencils. So I've put some colours on there, so I'll zoom in, and this is a live show recorded for Ustream.tv and also recorded for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. And this is part 2, and I've scratched in, I think that one was emerald green and cobalt turquoise. I thought they would make quite a good mixture, so I've got a little bit of paper that I keep practicing my colours on just before I put them onto the paper. A bit of a blow to the dust off, but I'm trying not to waste any dust, really. And if you blend these two together, you should get a really nice effect. So you go from the green. In fact, I'm going to do all the green first, because I want to keep all that pale green the same. And then when we get down to the middle sections, I can start with this one, and you just get that lovely transformation from that almost pea green, even though it wasn't called pea green. You get a nice blended colour. And it's very easy, and again, I like things that are easy and fairly quick, no mess, no water pots to spill, because I'm terrible with pots, and I'm getting terrible actually with palettes, so at the moment I'm restricted to pastels, but I'm still trying to colour as much as possible, even though I can't use my lovely watercolours. And as I go along, I'm fixing this so it's all ready. There's a little bit of a, I've missed that bit there, and that bit there. There's a bit of a mark there, and I don't know what that is, and a mark there. And I've gone over the line with the actual pencil, so as long as you haven't blended, I can use my magic Derwent eraser, and I can just take any marks off. As long as you haven't blended beforehand, they should come off. So that little bit of pencil was over that line, and there was a little bit there. So again, I love that, even if I've made a mistake, and with my clumsy hands at the moment I do. So now that is all set quite nicely as I like it. Possibly this little one up here can just be blended. Normally you hold it like this, but of course I'm using this because you can see what I'm doing, otherwise the silly thumbs in the way. So I have my trusty number 5 rigger, and I take all the water off it. It's been swishled on a baby wipe, and then I'm taking off more water with my fingers till it's just barely damp. And then we want one complete quick stroke over every petal, and that turns all that pastel into a watercolour, and it dries it instantly. So you can actually reconstitute it. If you want to go back in and move it, you can. It's not set as in it's not going to move like the Inktense pencils. This is now a watercolour on a piece of paper. But there's no buckling, so that's quite nice. I think I did that one, but as long as it's dry, it's going to forgive me. And I found a mistake. Oh, I've forgotten the stem. That's what I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten to do the stem, so I could do with a bit of a point for the stem, really, and none of my pencils have got a point to them. So I'm just doing that. And then from a little Derwent Cotman watercolour set, I've got one of these little fold away brushes, but it's just fine enough to get into there. And again, I'm going to see if I can get rid of that, because I've made a bit of a pig's ear of that. Let's see if we can get rid of that pencil mark. I tried not to blend it, I tried to miss it, in which case I should get rid of it. So I do quite like that blended little bit. So I'm trying to mix a lot of blended colours together to make colours that are not pure pencil. They are not at the end of here, they're a mixture. And again, I quite like that, because that means I've got colours that nobody else has got, because I've made them up. So I might put some little pink. I think we may have some little pink, maybe pink daisies, those. Or probably yellow, I think. There is a nice, there's a deep cadmium, which is a really nice, pretty colour, I like that. But I'm just going to do the centres, I think. And really, you don't want to be scratching too much, because everything that's dust is just going to be blown away, so we need to just keep them the lightest touch to get a little bit of a colouring. And I think I might actually put this vanilla colour. It's very pale. I might put that on the outside. So you want to stick with one little bit of a layer of colour. So you can use multiple colours, which is wonderful. When I did the Harry Potter stones on Hagrid's cottage, I think I had 16 colours, but very rarely did I try to put a colour over the top of another. It was a case of fill a space with 16 dots. And then when I blended them together, I got some really nice effects. So there's two colours there. So again, I've got to clean my little blending tool to make sure I don't have any more green on it. And then you can take the pale and blend in the dark then. And you get quite a natural little dark centre of every flower. But I do like the it's called vanilla. I think did I say vanilla? Vanilla was number 10 and deep cadmium was number 40. And those two colours are really quite nice together, because you've always got a lemony colour with a rich cadmium. So I quite like those, they're quite pretty. Now we can put a little bit of a redness. The raspberry red I quite like, but there's a crimson. I think I'll go for raspberry. It's just a bit pinkier than cadmium. And it's made them into little fancy flowers. But I'm actually just going to take my tiny water brush. This is a little water brush from a travel set. In fact, that looks a little bit obviously like a blender as well, so put that on there. So I'm just going to actually literally turn those dots into watercolours, and they'll be set then. So clean my little brush. And then we can just stroke every petal, preferably palest to the darkest. And then again, that's turned them all into watercolours. And the second they are dry, that becomes a watercolour. So again, you could go back in there with a water brush and change it. But this is again a colour book, so I just want to kind of have a play but make some nice colours. But if you photocopied a page and played with the Derwent pastels or whatever you're going to use first, once you've got a page coloured, you've got a good idea of what's going to happen. So I quite like those together. I haven't thought about a background. I'm thinking about a background, but I haven't thought about one yet. But I know that in the Johanna Christmas one, I didn't like covering up the background because it was this gorgeous ivory linen colour, and I quite like that. So we'll have to think about it, what I want to do. I did a monarch butterfly colour, and I quite liked that yesterday. So we had like a cadmium red and orange, spectrum orange, cad red, and have a bit of a play with this butterfly. So I'm using tangerine, which is 1110, and I'm using cadmium red 130. So I think the butterflies are normally kind of readier in the middle, if I remember rightly, but I might just do this, I think. And again, try not to put too much in there. So I've got a burnt orange, and I think I kind of like that. No, I must have done that one wrong. That looks like it's a burnt orange is number 90. I think I'll just make that one a bit darker. So we could put the orange in that one as well. Not to be outdone, so it looks odd, and then just a bit of a blow the dust onto the baby wet. There isn't much dust that it catches, but it does catch a little bit. Oops, and then we'll have a bit of a blend. And it's always really difficult for me when I'm I'm recording videos, because I get so carried away with what I'm doing that I forget to talk and I'm kind of miles away. So apologies if I kind of go off in my own little world. I quite like that, and I think I've probably got a bit of a stain on the blender, so I'm going to just use that. So I quite like those colours. It's a bit of a miserable day here. Oh, have I got two chats going? I apologise. Let me have a look. Let me see if I can get this chat. I thought it was very quiet. So have we got two chats? I don't know what that's for. Let me just have a look. I don't know why it's done it. I tried to reset it. Let me see if that's restored it. Is that better? I've got the Stargazer chat test. Hopefully that's the one. I don't know why it does that. It did that the other day. I don't think I've pressed a different button, but it could possibly be me. I'm not conscious of the fact that I've pressed a wrong button, but anything's possible with me. And the more savvy I think I am, computer savvy, the more I make a pig's ear of it. So apologies. So it should be a live chat with live people. At the moment it's just me talking to myself. So thank you for watching, to all my YouTubers. Thank you very much for watching and subscribing, and for all my live peeps, fibs that have a natter in the box and keep me occupied while I waffle, do a lot of my waffle. So thanks guys for stopping in, and sorry if you can't have a natter as normal. I'm not quite sure what I've done with chat. It could be my laptop. It could be my laptop. It's having a funny moment this week. But it's the other one records very bad videos. And a lady said it was terrible and she couldn't bear to watch it anymore. So I have to use this laptop, which seems to be better at the visual. And then I just gone over there. So because you've turned this into a watercolour, you can do this with a watercolour. So with a clean damp brush you can wash away a mistake. And I've done one there as well, so if you catch it, because it will now not be able to be pushed away with the eraser, because now it's a watercolour, now it's not a pencil pastel. So I quite like those colours. And you put them together, it's coming along, hopefully. Oh, and there is a bigger butterfly there, but I think that's going to be a blue one, a blue and purple one. So I can't see very much of chat. I don't know why. I tried to restart it, but it's I don't know why it doesn't like chat. Let's see if anybody's. Yeah, apologise for chat. It seems to be doing something of its own. Because I've reset it. And it's just not having it. Yes, that's not. As I say, for some reason, it's playing up. Yeah, sorry guys, I done something to chat. So it seems to be working for me, but it's just not working for everybody else. So I do apologise. I'm not sure what I've done to it. I'll finish this blue butterfly off and then it'll be time for Dee Dee anyway, I think. +1. Pretty sure, so. Got to remember to do this the lightest touch, because if we don't do the lightest touch, we'll end up with just dust. And all that pure colour will just be thrown away or blown away, literally. So it's quite good to do that. I thought I had a very pale purple, but quite like those colours. So that was 240 and violet 260 and dioxazine purple 280, and then we put a tiny bit of ultramarine 290 in there. Oh, I'm sorry, it could be a bark alert, possibly bark alert. So I'll just finish my little butterfly and then see what happens. I like these colours because they're quite pastely pale colours, so they're quite nice. Hey Sam, you alright? Whoopsie, little man. Has he gone upstairs with your girl, Piggles? It's going to be trouble now. There'll be trouble, pigs. Pigs. I'll just see if we can do this, and then that should look quite nice, I think. Sorry about being in my own light. And then I've got kind of a bit of a colour going on the blending tool, and I always think that's quite nice. And that came in handy for the Colin Thompson one as well, because you did a book and then you've got to make up a colour for the label. That seemed to be just pale enough to get away with being a label, but it's still kind of matched, so I quite like doing that. And again, quite like those colours. So we've got another thing going on here. Again, it's a good idea to kind of clean this as you remember to do it, so you're not kind of... Has she gone upstairs? Has he gone upstairs with your baby? No, Gigi. Gigi was the baby, and Alfie's just kind of struggled in, and he's now the baby. It's there, darling. I don't want any more. I keep wasting it. Thank you. Because this is a small space, I think I'm actually just going to take this and make it into a watercolour straight away. So if you didn't have a blending tool but you had pastel pencils, and that was Cobalt Turquoise 400, what you could do is take your little brush and put your colour down. Sorry, I was out of focus there, I do apologise. And I've just scratched a little bit, and instead of blending it with a blending tool, you can blend it with a brush. You don't need a blending tool, and what you're doing is very similar to when we use the Derwent watercolour pencils and the Derwent Intense. You scribbled a little bit of colour, and then you're kind of manipulating it at where you want it. But especially with these pastels, you're turning it into a watercolour, and so you're just, as I say, you don't have to blend it. I like the blendedness of it, but this is quicker, very quick. You're just putting a little bit of colour down, so there's no waste, and then you're just teasing it to where you want it, and then when you put your paintbrush down, this has become dried and set, so you don't need a blending tool. You don't have to go out and buy a blending tool. And now that's kind of set, so if I can get this light down here, should actually sharpen them, but there's not much point because they're always going to go back to being blunt because they're very soft. They're far too soft to keep a sharp point on. So I've got my very faint little brush here, my tiny brush, and the trick is if you stay within the line of this little brush and you just wet the pastel in the little line, what you can then do is erase the pastel pencil. You can erase that and it's gone. So again, it's another way to correct your work, but there's no reason to do anything now because that isn't a pastel anymore, it's a watercolour and it's dried. It's just, I do actually quite like the blending test. And apologies guys, I've done something to the chat and I'm so sorry, but I hope you're all having a good natter. I'll have a look at my laptop and see what it's doing later. It's obviously having a moment. I think that's obviously going to be green, but I think we'll have some olives, an olive green maybe. And I'm going to put just the olive green. And maybe just at the top of here, I think. And then I'm going to make it into kind of a sepia brown colour, I think. So I'm going to take my little tiny brush this time, and I'm going to just manipulate this and then do the top, so that is giving me a highlight. So again, little one, and then there's enough on there to do the highlight. I'm going to do the same with that one, and there'll be a paler for the highlight. And then I've got a mixture here of the brown. I'm going to take this down here, so this is going through here, and then push this down here, and then who's chatting? Is that the mole? Oh, right. I had to say be quiet, but I don't think she's very quiet. Right. So you're blending with a damp brush, so that becomes quite nice. And I'll give the colours for these in just a second, because I forgot. I used dark olive and olive green 510 and 520. And again, because they were next to each other, I knew they'd look quite nice. Tell a light was sepia. It was 530, and it was olive green 520. And I had decided to do all these together, so all the same leaves and all the same flowers would be the same. But when I had a look at the actual pattern, or the page, what had happened was, and I didn't really like that, I didn't notice it to start with, I've got a really nice subtle shade on there. If I pan out a bit, you'll see why I changed my mind, because if you look at the whole book, that section there is the same as that section there, is the same as that section there, that section there is the same as that section, and that section there is identical to that section, that section, that section, and that section. And then that one is the same as that one, and it's the same as that one. So it's basically like a stamp. So if I've done that, it would have looked just like a stamp. But if I change the colours and do different things as I move around, it will not look like, oh, that's the same as that and that's the same as that. So I've changed the way it's going to look in the end, if that made any sense. But I've gone, because I've actually now wet all those pastels, they are now all water set. So there's no fixatives. I have a little tray, and actually it's quite big, that for me. I normally have a small top, a shallow dish, because I can get my fat paintbrush, my long rigger into it. And I have a damp brush, and that's if I drop the brush on here, which I normally do, I'm dropping water, so it's not going to damage anything, because I'm getting terribly clumsy with my bad hands at the moment. So apologies for chat. I think I've messed it up something terrible, but I hope you can all have a natter between yourselves. I will actually do those little yellow ones again. I think I quite like those there. I don't think there's many other little yellow flowers. Let me have a look. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change them. I think I'll change them now, then I won't forget. In fact, there's a yellow ochre. They could probably get darker, and there's a yellow ochre, so I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre on the tip, and I'll pan back in again. I just wanted to explain why I wasn't doing originally what I said I was going to do, because I had to change it. So that was yellow ochre 580, And I really like, oops, this, I like the raspberry. I like raspberry, so I'm going to put the raspberry in the middle. And again, you only want to go where you haven't been before. It's a bit like the Enterprise. You've only got to go where you've not been before. And again, there, there, and there. And that's raspberry 110, and I like that colour. So I'm going to use the big blending tool, which is nice and clean. And I'll zoom back in again. A little bit of a blow, and then we start with the yellow, and we take out that. I think I'm going to do all the yellow first. I'm going to go to the little tiny taper. This seems to be a bit small, does this? That's a bit better. So you're just teasing out some colour. Seem to have gone a kind of a salmony pink. So that means if you use, or a corally pink I should say, coral pink. So that means if you use a pinky red and a pinky red and a yellow ochre, but it's kind of a sandy dark yellow ochre, you get salmon pink. So you can make salmon pink in any medium you like. Again, I've got to actually set those now, because if I rub those, they would blend. I'm going to put that raspberry. I did like the raspberry in the centre of the other ones, so again I'm just going to put the tiniest bit in there. In fact, I could actually kind of raspberry them all up a bit. You can probably get away doing this once. And what I'm going to do is kind of just go around there with a damp brush. And if you stay on the outside, you get it more yellowy. And if you blend from the inside, you will get a pinker petal, because that pink is extremely vibrant. So we can tease that colour in. So we're doing a little bit of blending and we're setting it into a watercolour. But again, once we've blended that colour together, that's an unusual colour that nobody else has got. It's not in a set colour, pencil set. It's a made up colour. And if you're doing a large area, for goodness sake, if you're doing colour mixing, make a lot of whatever colour you've got, because it's very difficult to make the same colour exact. But for ours, that's fine. It's gone from that bright yellow to pinky, and then it's going to go over there. So I'm going to do a different leaf now. And that one was 140 raspberry. So I'm going to use some more greens because I want to mix a few greens together to experiment. This is my experimental page. I do like a very pale kind of, I like a pale external leaf. And then we can kind of come in with a bit of a bit greener leaf, and then we've got kind of and although I'm scribbling, I'm doing it very lightly because I don't want to do it too much. So I was using forest green 410, fresh green, which is the very pale one, 470, and then the middle one is pea green 430. So we start with the pea green and blend the ends. And then we can blend in that next colour. And then eventually that other colour is going to go in there as well. So you can then get this deeper green to make a middle. And the little tiny blending tool, which I keep pushing somewhere. Oh, hi Stargazer, sorry I didn't realise it was working. She says, if I had no issues with my hands, what would be the medium of choice for colouring books? That's a difficult one, that one. I like lots of different things for different reasons. I do love to be more creative. I love the watercolours in the little book, the pure watercolours. But seeing as I can use them all out of this little book, as long as they're water based, I would use them out of my little book. So just touch a colour and draw, and then flick, touch a colour and colour in. So anything that's water based in my little book, that's a water based, like a watercolour. So you've got your Caran d'Ache, Hydrus in here, watercolours. I forgot what they're called. Peerless. Then there's the Derwent watercolours, Derwent Inktense, and the Derwent Graphitint. So anything that's water based would be my fave. So that means no colouring pencils, and I like my pastels because my pastels are water based as well. Purely because they're easy and the creative. So that's that's anything that I can get in my little book. And when I get sorted, when my hands are better, I will be putting these pastels, pencils, all of them in my little book. So I'll have another couple of hundred colours in my book. Because I love the colours, and you just use them direct. So there's no mixing, there's no need to blend. I just pick one colour, and I think we worked out that there were 6,000 in here. There's well over 600 colours now. So each one's about 10 shades. There's the Faber-Castell crayons, and they're almost as good as the colour-wise. If you look at the colours, they're very intense. They're as good as Neocolour 2s. It's just Neocolour 2s you get more for your money, and they're just that bit more vibrant. But I love my Neocolour 2s. Anything that's water-based, really. Anything that's water-based and easy to use. But I intend to put these, I intend to make them into water-based puddles of colour. Then there'll be watercolours, but they will be all these pastel colours, which I love, if that makes sense. If that made sense. That's why I want Derwent to do that, because they can make these into little flat pans of colour that you touch with a brush. And so you've got another 72. So Derwent could really make some a really fantastic 21st century watercolour travel pack with at least 10,000 colours, at least, just with Derwent. They could get 1,000 colours. They have instant access to 1,000 colours, and then if you times them by 10 for tones, that's 10,000 colours, and that's got to be one hell of a 21st century watercolour palette. Oh, yeah, Dee Dee will be on soon. I thought she would be. I've got about 15 minutes left of my video. I'll just show you this one. Yep. Oops, bear with me. It's called The Lonely Planet, The Ultimate Travelist Colour Book. What is Stargazer? Yes, that's what I've been doing, Stargazer. They're all acted with watercolours. That's what's made them, whoops, flat. Apart from that one. Haven't done that one. That's still a pastel. But all the other ones. That's why I've been using them, because you can just... I don't like that colour, so I don't really want to set that, really. I don't think I like the colour. So I can take it off. That's what I've been doing, Stargazer. You make them into a water. It is basically a watercolour, because if you've got these pastels here, that's what gave me the idea, just to test. These professional pastels from De La Rowney. They're basically almost pure pigment, and so, but once you add water to them, they become a watercolour. And it's setting them, instead of using fixative, I'm just setting them with water. So the last 3 videos I've done have been called setting pastels with water, fixing them. Instead of using fixatives, I've been fixing them with water. So maybe I hadn't got the right terminology, but that's what I mean. So I think on the last video I did yesterday, I think I went through quite a few books that I was going to be using these for, because I can't see my hands getting better very quickly. So I didn't like that particular green. I don't know why. I just didn't like it. It was just a bit too dark, so I've lightened it up a bit. I hadn't fixed it with water. I'd only blended it, so I could change it. But once you've fixed it with water, you can add to it, because it'll become a watercolour again. They become like the Derwent watercolour pencils. It's going to be a pencil that's set with water, so you can move it. Whereas the Inktense ones, once they're set with water, you can't. I think that looks slightly better. And so what I do now is I get this paintbrush, and I take a lot of water off it so it's just damp, and then I stroke the top because I don't want to blend it. I don't want to move it because I've already blended it with the blending tool. But there's two ways you can do it. You can blend with the brush and fix it, and I did that in part 1, and I did that with these little ones here. Or you can blend it with a blending tool and then do what I'm doing now, is just going over the top with a very, very slightly damp brush, and that's set the pastel so I don't have to worry about it smudging. For all intents and purposes, that now is a watercolour. So if I dip the brush into here and I went back into this butterfly, it would become a watercolour again. But it initially started out as a pastel. So I'm just going to do this other little leaf here because I'll forget the colours that I'm using. And I say I didn't like the paler ones. This one is fresh green, which is 470, and I'm just going to do the edges. And then I think I had a different green, but I'm just going to put this in the middle and blend it round. It looks a different leaf, but it's from the same stem, so it's got to be connected a bit. Probably make that one a little bit greener. So everywhere you can see white paper, you can put a little bit of colour, but it's a good idea not to put things over the top. And you blow away the dust and then start blending. Now I should have cleaned my little blending tool because it's picking up the dark. So do the blunt or the pale first. And then you can start to kind of think about taking that colour around. I quite like them. I quite like that. And then what I could do is possibly just put maybe a little bit of very, very dark in there. And again, I'm not going to go in there with the blending tool because they're too small. I'm going to go straight away with a little brush and blend that into a set watercolour. And then when I take the big brush and take quite a lot of water off it. It's been on a baby wipe, but it's still a little bit damp for me. And you can see that glistens just a touch and dries almost instantly, and that's what you want, because you don't want to blend it now. You want to just skim over the top with a very light touch of just the smallest amount of water you can possibly get. And now they are both, I can't do it with that one yet, but they are both set now. They are not a pastel anymore, they are a watercolour. The only reason I bought them is the same, because I panicked because my hands weren't working very well, and I found an old set that I must have had nearly 20 years. So that's the only reason. My hands won't let me do beautiful bright colours, and I found these in a cupboard that I hardly ever touched. I think they were bought like this, and I thought I had a play in the Daydreams book, and I loved them so much. I loved them so much that I thought, but they were a little bit dusty. But I thought, I really like these colours and I can work with them. because they don't hurt my hands. And that gave me the idea that, as I say, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I found the new set of new colours from Derwent, the 72 vibrant colours. And these are the nearest thing, pastels are nearest thing you can get to pure pigment. So the colour you see on the end is the colour that you get, unless you use it very pale, which is what I've done. I've still got very pale because I don't want to scratch and make very lots of dust, because the dust is the pastel and you're wasting it, and then I'm a tight Yorkshire lass basically. But as I say, the only reason I bought them is I cannot use my gorgeous pastel pencils, my watercolour pencils, because even holding them and trying to control the pencil, I find difficult with this thumb. But when I use these pastels, they're so chalky that you just glide across and no pressure at all. And I can get colour where I want it, and then I can manipulate it with this little blending tool. And again, I'm using my fingers, I'm not using the thumb. I can't use this thumb, it's too painful. So I use the blender like this and blend. And I find that okay, and then I stroke over the top with a bendy damp brush. So it's very good if you can't use your thumbs. Because otherwise, my husband bought me my UG tablet to use as well, but it meant that I couldn't do anything else, it would just be digital. And so I really wanted to keep this going as well if I could. So pastel pencils are okay to use. And you can set them with water as well, which is what I thought would be wonderful in a book. So I can touch this now and it's not going anywhere. It's all set. But if I could, I would work back out of my little book. But I would make little squares of the pastel colours. Haven't worked out how to do it yet, but because I can't scribble, I can't really use a pencil. I couldn't scribble colour in here, and so that, apologies to the ladies that won the giveaway for New Year. I'll have to send the little books out without anything because I just cannot scribble any colour, and I didn't want to do that because I know a lot of ladies don't have it. The 4 ladies that won, I think a couple don't have anything in water-based, but I just cannot hold a pencil to scribble any squares. So apologies for that, but this is my fave thing. If this is the only thing I could have, I would have my watercolours, and they are professional watercolours as well in there. I would have these are the Inktense blocks. These are in here as well. So they're very chalky, hence all that colour, but of course it's pure colour. So I've got the peerless watercolours, the 72 Derwent Inktense. So again, they're sat just like these are sat, from lemons to oranges to reds. They're all sat in order because they're all in order. The Inktense, they're in the same order. Then I've got the graphy tints, but I've got the graphy tones. So there are the Prismalo, but there's the Derwent sketching pencils, so you can make some lovely washes with these. And the Caran d'Achener colour 2s, which again I would love the full set, but I don't need it. I'd love it, but I don't actually need it, so it's pointless. I can scribble 2 colours together and get thousands, let alone 100, so I don't need them. I can make 10 times more colours that they have in theirs with these colours, so I don't need them. Derwent Prismalo metallics. I think I've got 10 of these, which are the Faber-Castell crayons. They're very vibrant, the watercolour pastels. Some more Inktense blocks, some more pastels, and my Kuretake Gansai Tami watercolours, which again I love, but I love them out of here. I've got a lot more control. I've got 10 shades instantly here than I have in a pan. And then I have my fantastic Hydrus Watercolours Professional drops. There's only 5 drops in there, but there's tons of colour left. So there's quite a few colours in there. But as I say, at the moment I just cannot grip with this thumb, so this is another way that I can continue to use my books without getting too upset of what I can't do and think about what I can do. But yeah, I mean, every time I move, I see my pencils, and I've actually taken them out of the bag because it was too upsetting to see them with the graphy tint. But again, I've had these are the hexagonal ones and the round ones. So the round ones are very old. I've had these about when they first came out, but I think my children were little, so, and they're 18 and 16 now, so I've had them a long time. The only ones I bought recently, and I think it was my birthday 2 years ago, was the graphy tint. I don't think it was last year. It might have been last year or the year before. And I got these, and then half price was the Colour Soft, and I've never been able to use those. I gave those to my daughter. I did one mandala, and my hand was bad for a month, so they instantly went to my daughter, and she loves them. But they are beautiful to use. In fact, I've just found an old Derwent artist pencil, and it's beautiful, but I don't use it because you have to scribble with those, and I cannot do that. But I'm quite happy with my pastels. I love them, and I have my original set, which again I have had since, and I had never used them. My daughter used them last year for the first time and had forgotten about them, says she. And these are the original 90, so they've got 3 shades, 3 tones for each colour. So there's only in a box of 90. And I'd love the full set, but I just can't get hold of the full set. It was £100, and I just could not justify £100 because I just bought the Vibrant new set. This is the new set you can buy now with the tiger on the front. This is the new set of 72 Vibrant watercolour based pastel pencils from Derwent. This set is about 20 or 30 years old. It's very old is this set. But I love it, and these are a little bit chalkier, and being a bit fatter, they're easier for me to hold. But I would so love the 90 set of these, because I just like full sets of things. So the only way of doing it is to watch eBay and buy them second hand, and hope that some kind person has bought them and doesn't want them anymore. So, because I love these, but they are just that little bit bigger, so they're just that little bit easier to hold. So I like to keep these in order because I'm a little bit of a sad girl, but I just find it easier because they are in a natural progression of colour. It's not just because I want to keep them in order. I love this order is the same with the other pencils. You have all your yellows, and yellows go to oranges, and oranges go to reds, then the reds go to pinks, then the pinks go to purples, and then the purples goes to blues, and the blues go to greens, and then the greens go to olive colours, browns, fawns, greys and blacks. So it's all kind of a natural palette. It's a palette of pencils, and I have this palette of pencils for the last 40-50 years. It's always been the same. It will never change. It's always light to dark and round, because they are naturally in their order. So you could pick out the primary colours, which is your cadmium yellows. You can pick out your tertiaries, your secondaries, which is your orange, and then everything in between is a tertiary. So it basically is a colour wheel of pencils. You have a purple, which is a complementary colour. The orange is a secondary colour, and the purple is. Everything in between is tertiary. The same with the blues. You have a blue, and in between blue and yellow you have your greens. So you've got your primaries and you've got your secondaries, but then in between, which is all your teals, your dark blues, they then and green blues, they all become tertiary colours. They are mixtures of the two main colours, the secondary colours and the primary colours, and that goes all the way around the colour wheel. But I love this particular set, and also because they are pastels, they've got a binder which is very, very small amount of binder to the amount of pigment. So these are almost pure pigment, and pigments are dust. That's how they start. All pigments start as a dust. And I had intended on buying my own, but you've got to grind them. Some of them you've got to grind to a powder to then add the binder to make it a watercolour, an acrylic or an oil. And it's the grinding I couldn't do with the arthritis, so I've had to stick with these. But these are beautiful colours because they are almost near pure pigment. They're slightly off. These are nearer because this pigment is even less than on a pastel pencil. These are very, very soft and chalky. There's nothing holding these together hardly. This bind, so that's why I love the colours, and the colours are so wonderful. So you get quite a lot of colour out of one pencil, even though you're using just a tiniest amount, if that made sense. So that's the end of part 2 of the Johanna Basford's Magical Jungle with the Derwent pastels. So I hope that was okay. I hope everybody understood everything. Yes, stargazers, yes you can. That's why I have these pastel pencils here, and I got them out. I put them here. These are Derwents and these are in here. There's 2 different types. Basically anything that has that little water brush mark here, if that's on a pencil, you can mix it with water because that's what it means. So these Graphitones light are designed to be scribbled, and I think I've got them in here somewhere. They're behind the Graphitint, I think. So a Derwent, that's actually not that one, it's this one. So the Derwent Sketching Pencil Dark Wash B 8B, that's very, very soft. It has a water brush mark. So you can put it in here, use a brush, and you can make it into like a sketching, like an ink sketch, but you're not using ink, you're using pencil. So there's the Graphitone, oh it is in there, look, the Graphitone Light, that's what that is, 8B, 2B, should be an 8B somewhere. And then there's the Sketching Pencil Derwent, that's a 4B. Somewhere I've got 8Bs, so there's about 10 of these. The charcoal, I'm not sure that the charcoal will mix with water, as in you can do that and then you can take a she finds her brush. And you can make it into a gorgeous, you can do a line drawing. Oops, you could do a landscape. If you're doing a landscape and you wanted tonal values, you could then kind of go in and smush it about a bit. And I actually love some of my favourite drawings I've done with a brush. I draw with a brush. I've always done that. So that's basically it. But I love them, and I want to put these in my book. I've got the very crumbly Inktense blocks here. And again, you know, they are very, very, very soft. They're almost like a pastel. So that's why I said Derwent can get at least 10,000 colours in a travel colour set like this, easily. They can get 1,000 colours and each have got 10 tones. And that becomes, because there's 10 shades of every colour, that's 10,000 colours. I've got 6,000 in here. And that's about 3 inches, I think. 2.5, 3 inches. But with these watercolours here, there isn't a colour on the planet I can't make. So potentially there's thousands just on that one piece. But for instancy, so for instant colour, I used to use the blue of the Peerless and then flick to the Caran d'Ache reds, because I love the Caran d'Ache, or the Inktense reds. I'd pick a red, and the other book I was going to make, when I thought this would fall to bits, because I've had it about 4 or 5 years, is I was going to put all the greens together, all the reds together, and it didn't matter what make they were. They're all water based. They're all water based, and they all have fantastic colouring power. The pigments in all of them is extremely good. But I do love my little book. That would be my fave thing. I travelled all around Europe with a water brush and this, but you can't. I don't use a water brush in my colour books because they warp, and I want too much detail. I want instant detail. I don't want to do 5 layers. I want to do 1, because I want to spend about 4 or 5 hours on a page, and that's normally it. Unless it's the Colin Thompson that's got 1,000,000 books, and then you're a bit longer. So thanks for watching, and that's the end of part 2 of the Johanna Magical's sketchbook colouring with Derwent pastel pencils. Thanks for watching.